Chapter 3. First Contact. Wade climbed back into the Oshkosh and closed the heavy driver's door. The familiar sound of the cab shutting around him helped settle his nerves. "All right," he muttered. "One problem at a time." Panicking wasn't going to get him anywhere. He grabbed a notebook from behind the seat and started taking inventory of everything he had. The truck itself was in excellent condition. The fuel tanks were full, and he still had the extra 10-foot fuel container strapped to the trailer. The cargo was all still secure. The compact 40 to 75 horsepower four-wheel drive tractor hadn't shifted an inch. The 25-foot off-grid shipping container looked untouched, complete with its fold-down solar panels. His own supplies were still there as well. His laptop, a week's worth of clothes, his fishing gear, his cooler packed with food, his cookware and spices, his tools, his revolver, 12 spare rounds of ammunition, the bag of quarters, a first aid kit, several bottles of water, and plenty of blue Gatorade. So, Wade said to himself, "I'm alive, I got transportation, food, fuel, and enough supplies to last a while." He leaned back in the driver's seat. "Now I just have to figure out where the hell I am and how to get home." He studied the landscape through the windshield. Driving a fully loaded heavy equipment transporter across open grassland would be asking to get stuck. The Oshkosh was built for rough terrain, but the trailer and its cargo weighed far too much to blindly cross unknown ground. No sense burying 40 tons in a mud hole. If he wanted to find civilization, he first needed to find a road. Wade holstered his revolver, grabbed a canteen, and climbed back out of the truck. He locked the cab behind him out of habit. Then he started walking. For nearly an hour, he crossed rolling hills and patches of tall grass, carefully looking for anything that resembled a trail. Finally, he smiled. There we go. Running along the side of a low ridge was a well-used wagon trail. The ground was packed hard from years of travel. Wheel ruts were deep, and dozens of hoof prints covered the path. It wasn't a modern road, but it was a road. If wagons use it this much, it'll probably lead somewhere. Satisfied, Wade turned around and began walking back toward the truck. He had almost reached it when movement caught his eye. Several people stepped over a nearby rise. Hunters. There were 6 of them. They wore leather clothing reinforced with pieces of boiled hide and carried longbows, spears, and short hunting knives. Their faces were weathered from years spent outdoors. The moment they saw the Oshkosh, every one of them froze. Their eyes grew wide. One pointed toward the enormous truck. The group quickly spread out. Several raised their bows toward the vehicle. Wade sighed quietly. "You guys really don't want to do that." He knew arrows weren't going to do much against military-grade steel. The truck would probably come away with little more than scratch paint. Still, he didn't want anyone getting hurt. Keeping both hands where they could be seen, Wade slowly walked out into the open. "Hey!" The hunters immediately turned toward him. Several arrows shifted away from the truck and pointed directly at his chest. Wade stopped walking. "Easy." He slowly raised one hand high over his head while letting the other rest near, though not on, the grip of his revolver. He wanted to be ready if things went bad, but he also wanted them to see he wasn't reaching for it. The hunters spoke rapidly among themselves. Their language was completely unfamiliar. Not a single word made sense. Wade tried anyway. "My name's Wade." Blank stares. "I don't want any trouble." "Nothing." He pointed toward himself. "Wade." Then toward the truck. "Mine." Next he pointed down the wagon trail. "Town." The hunters looked at each other with confused expressions. One older man cautiously answered in his own language while pointing somewhere beyond the hills. Wade couldn't understand a word. He sighed. Figures. For several long moments, both sides simply stood there trying and failing to communicate. Then everything fell apart. One of the younger hunters suddenly stepped forward. He shouted something at Wade. Before anyone else could stop him, he drew his bow to full draw and released. The arrow flew straight toward Wade. Training and instinct took over. Wade dove sideways as the arrow flashed past his shoulder and buried itself in the ground behind him. In one smooth motion, he drew his revolver. He had no intention of killing anyone. He aimed well above their heads. Bang! The shot echoed across the valley like thunder. Every bird in the area exploded into the air. The hunters froze in absolute shock. None of them had ever heard a firearm before. Smoke drifted from the end of Wade's revolver. The younger hunter dropped his bow. Another let his spear fall from nerveless fingers. One by one, the others threw down their weapons as panic spread through the group. Then they turned and ran as fast as they could. Within seconds, they had disappeared over the hill. Wade slowly lowered the revolver. His heart was pounding. Well, he looked at the empty brass casing lying near his feet. That could have gone better. He carefully reholstered the revolver and looked toward the distant wagon trail. So much for making a good first impression. Still, if there really was a town somewhere down that road, those hunters would almost certainly be heading there, which meant that by the time Wade arrived, everyone would already know that something strange had come out of the mountains.